News conference there from several of the leaders in the area that are involved in trying to in the search and recovery, trying to figure out exactly what was going on. We heard from the mayor of D.C. We also heard from a lot from U.S. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, talking about on multiple occasions said that the helicopter was in a standard pattern. The American Airlines flight was in a standard flight pattern as well, and it's not unusual for these aircraft to be in the same space. He says it happens all the time. He also talked about how they've located the fuselage of the American Airlines plane. It was in 3 different locations, and it was in waist deep water, so they're still working on that, and NTSB will analyze everything that they find and then try to come up with some answers as to why this happened. And the Chief Donnelly said he also talked about how they're switching from a rescue to recovery mode.
That's what really stood out to me, you know, because we're talking about human lives here. Yes, this is a breaking, developing news story, but these are real human lives that we are talking about, and that's the part that really stuck out, that coming from the D.C. fire chief, that this is now turned to a recovery operation. He also gave us a little bit of fluctuation with the number of bodies recovered so far. He says they're counted as they go through the medical examiner's office. So he gave a slightly different number than what we had heard from CBS News. But of course, we know that there will be 67 Unfortunately, 67 bodies that will be recovered at the end of the day here. The Transportation Secretary, something else that stuck out to me, Annie, was he also said that though these aircraft are often in the air together, this was preventable.
Right, and that was my takeaway. What struck me, there were a lot of questions that he took regarding that flight pattern question, because as Wisdom said, it is not unusual. He was reiterating that the helicopter and the American Airlines flight shared that space, but clearly something happened. He also mentioned that they do have early indication of what could have happened. He did not elaborate, but ended with that this could have been preventable, absolutely, and that he has full confidence that we do have the safest airspace in the world, because that is what I think, you know, is going through the minds of Americans at this point is, am I going to be safe next time I board a flight? Because the expectation is when you get on a flight, you're going to end at your destination safely. Yes. So that message was clear from Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, and the mayor weighing in on this strong mutual aid agreement and the teams working together, because we learned that the Potomac River, the way that this crash happened, this midair collision, the debris landing on the D.C. side is now something new for us as well, because we were wondering, you know, the mayor is taking the lead as far as local leaders go and federal and state leaders, but we now understand the reason behind that. But, you know, also what's clear to me is Senator Warner touched on this, that in times of a crisis like this, you sort of shed the layers of all of that, right? I mean, you come together. We know that this country is resilient, and what is amazing to see in times of a crisis is seeing all the local leaders come together with state and federal for one common goal. And
absolutely.
Right. And, you know, thanking the first responders for working tirelessly. We're going now into the 11th hour at this point, working under just dangerous and just terrible conditions with the water temperature and the murky water, the choppy water, all of it. So that was also clear, thanking our first responders.
Another person there sort of out of the realm of emergency personnel and politicians. We also heard from the CEO of American Airlines, Robert Eisen, and just opening up with how heartbroken he was for crew and the passengers. And he also mentioned those aboard the helicopter. And what stuck out to me with that, you know, because it's often we sit here and we complain about all the airlines, this and the prices and all of that, but we see when tragedy hits like this, he talked a lot about the GO team that is on the way here now to this area to make sure that all the families affected and trust, it's not just these people on board, not just the crew, not just the soldiers, it is all the family that they leave behind, that this GO team will help with everything that they need, from travel arrangements, hotels,
right.
and all of that
moving.
all of that moving forward. So to hear that from a huge corporation that could just say, you know, we don't know, let's just wait to, no, they're stepping in and they're working right now.
Real quick, I want to jump in on something that Senator Warner and Senator Tim Kaine from Virginia spoke to, because somebody asked this question. I mentioned this earlier. They have long had concerns, and we don't know exactly what happened because the NTSB is in charge of the investigation now, but they both mentioned the concerns that they've had in the past with the traffic at DCA Airport. They talked about that just briefly today, but in the past, both have been talking about the issues that are out there. Can that airport handle the capacity that's coming in and out of it? And I mentioned this earlier about how in May of 2024, American Airlines flight 2134 was cleared for takeoff at 10:30 in the morning, and then another aircraft had been cleared at that same intersection on a runway. They almost collided, but they called it off in time. And then before that, Southwest Airlines 2937 and JetBlue 1554 nearly collided at the airport as well. And at that point, Senator Warner said, "Hey, we need to get a handle on this and call for an investigation into flight capacity out there." Now, having said all that, this is still an active investigation. They are still trying to figure out exactly what happened. But we heard the transportation secretary say that as far as he knows right now, that everything nothing was unusual about this. There were he said specifically the communication was good, and that the airplane and the helicopter, it's not unusual to see them kind of sort of in the same space, but the mistake.
Standard path.
Yes,
He says something
yes, standard
went
path.
wrong.
And he did say something, this could have been avoided.
Something went wrong.
Right.